to support the G20's broader goals. Those red lines remain until this time. We all know that the G20 is a premier global forum for coordinating economic actions. Its core principle is consensus, which reflects the reality that all of us must work together to accomplish our shared objectives, ensuring financial stability, fostering economic growth, and strengthening collective development. For Argentina, it is crucial to preserve the integrity of this process by acknowledging when consensus has not been achieved, rather than proceeding with a document that does not accurately reflect our collective will. Moreover, we're deeply concerned with how certain geopolitical issues are framed in the document. Specifically, it addresses the long-standing Middle East conflict in a manner that fails to capture its full complexity. By focusing on a single dimension of a specific territory, it overlooks the broader regional context, the international recognition of different entities, and the structural causes of the dispute. In this regard, I wish to recall the recent adoption of UN Security Council Resolution 2803 on November 17th, which emphasizes the international community's support for a just and lasting peace in the Middle East, while calling for a comprehensive, fair process to address all aspects of the conflict. In closing, Argentina, although cannot endorse the declaration based on the aforementioned discrepancies, remains fully committed to the spirit of cooperation that has defined the G20 since its inception. We're convinced that only through genuine dialogue, respect for consensus, and adherence to the principles of the United Nations Charter and international law, can this forum continue to keep working constructively with all members and partners, with a shared aim on strengthening global stability, promoting sustained growth, and advancing development in a manner that is inclusive, balanced, and respectful of our diversity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. We note with deep respect the views expressed by Argentina. We will recall that in our last G20 summit in Brazil, Argentina was given the opportunity, following the various discussions that led to the consensus and agreement on the declaration, it was given the opportunity to voice its misgivings about certain parts of the declaration as it was adopted. And similarly, we have given Argentina the same opportunity, that they should, in their presentation, be able to raise issues that they are concerned about. We should take courage in knowing that that does not, in the end, mean that the declaration is nullified or rejected. It is a declaration that has been adopted by all of us here present. And so we want to thank Argentina for expressing the views that they have expressed, and many of the views are really views that are common or commonly held by many in terms of the adherence to rule of law and supporting the resolutions of the United Nations. So we thank you, Minister, for putting Argentina's position forward, and we will, with great respect, move ahead with a declared, with the accepted declaration as the G20. Thank you very much. We then move on and ask His Excellency Mr. Edgar Amador Zamora, Minister of Finance and Public Credit of the United Mexican States. Please go ahead, Minister.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Distinguished leaders of the G20 and invited countries, heads of international organizations. On behalf of the President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, I wish to extend our sincere congratulations to President Cyril Ramaphosa and to the South Africa team for an outstanding leadership of the G20 this year, and for convening the historic Leaders Summit, the first ever held in African soil. Mexico is a country deeply involved in the promotion of peace as a basis for justice, fair trade, social equity, gender equality, cooperation for development, and respect for human rights. Economic welfare and cooperation for development are shared responsibility among nations. In a world defined by interdependence, no country can isolate itself or prosper at the expense of others. Choosing cooperation is, in essence, choosing a common future grounded in justice. The expansion of trade can drive employment, raise incomes, and reduce poverty, all core dimensions of sustainable development. Moreover, international trade fosters the global adoption of green technologies, serving as a powerful mechanism to accelerate the transition toward low-carbon, resource-efficient economies. However, the expansion of global trade also brings complexities. While it has fueled global economic growth, its benefits remain unevenly distributed. Is how to ensure that global trade benefits are shared equitably and if directly contributes to sustainable development and shared prosperity. The multilateral trading system recognizes that when trade is fair, transparent, and properly regulated, it's a key driver of development and a tool for lifting millions out of poverty. Trade must serve people, generating well-paid jobs, fair wages, and opportunities that foster social inclusion. In the economic sphere, Mexico promotes a strategy of shared prosperity that places workers at the center of decision-making processes, recognizing that decent work is the foundation of a better quality of life. In this sustainability dimension, our priority is to prevent, reduce, and reverse environmental degradation while fostering a circular economy. Our national energy policy advances renewable sources and accelerates the transition toward cleaner production and consumption patterns, while ensuring equitable access to water as a fundamental human right. Through the Plan Mexico, we are empowering MSMEs by integrating them into national and global value chains, facilitating access to credit, digital tools, and capacity building program is essential for equitable growth and innovation. At the same time, we are investing in human capital, aligning education and training systems with the skills needed for the green and digital transitions. Environmental sustainability lies at the heart of Mexico's industrial and trade policy. We promote investment that meets standards on water reuse, clean energy, and solid waste management, with encouraging community-centered business practices. Environmental responsibility and resource efficiency are not obstacles to competitiveness. They are its foundation. Moreover, ensuring debt sustainability, particularly in less developed countries and vulnerable economies in Africa and Latin America, will strengthen those nations and create a more resilient and sustainable international financial system, where the benefits of trade and cooperation can reach all populations. Mexico has supported instruments for debt treatment such as the Common Framework and the G20 Ministerial Declaration of Debt Sustainability. We have also developed a sustainable debt management strategy by using debt instruments under favorable conditions, including local currency and fixed interest rate bonds. Through sound public budget management, Mexico has increased investment in social protection and education above 6% and 4% in real annual terms, respectively. Thus, we advocate for international debt frameworks that enables this development-oriented approach, preserving fiscal space for health, education, and sustainable infrastructure. The G20 must lead by example in implementing the Sevilla Commitment, strengthening the common framework, and expanding it to include middle-income and climate-vulnerable countries is both a moral and economic necessity. The G20, the United Nations, and international financial institutions must act in coherence. Mexico calls for an advancement of its synergies between the Sevilla Action Platform, the Pact for the Future, and G20 financial track. Finally, Mexico believes that the strength of the G20 lies not only in its economic power, but in its collective moral responsibility. let us lead with courage and conviction to make trade fair, debt sustainable, and development truly inclusive. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you indeed, Minister. I now have the privilege to call on
يسعدني أن أشارك في قمة هذا العام في مدينة جوهانسبرغ تحت شعار التضامن والمساواة والاستدامة. ويسرني أن أستهل كلمتي بنقل تحيات خادم الحرمين الشريفين وسمو العهد حفظهم الله وتمنياتهم الصادقة بنجاح مساعي رئاسة جنوب أفريقيا التي تستضيف أعمال مجموعة العشرين ولأول مرة في القارة الأفريقية، ومساعي الدول الأعضاء بتعزيز التعاون الاقتصادي وتحقيق التنمية المستدامة على الصعيد العالمي. الحضور الكرام، تؤكد المملكة العربية السعودية دعمها الكامل للجهود الرامية إلى إصلاح منظمة التجارة العالمية وتعزيز نظام تجاري متعدد الأطراف عادل وشفاف يمكن كافة الدول من العالمية ويحقق العدالة بين الدول الأعضاء. وترى المملكة أن التجارة الدولية ليست مجرد أداة للنمو الاقتصادي، بل هي ركيزة أساسية لتحقيق التنمية الشاملة ووسيلة لتعزيز الاستقرار الاقتصادي العالمي وضمان استفادة الجميع من منافع النظام التجاري الدولي بشكل متوازن. وفي هذا السياق وانسجاما مع مستهدفات رؤية السعودية 2030 تستمر المملكة بتطوير الأطر التنفيذية التي تشجع الاستثمار المسؤول في مختلف القطاعات بما في ذلك السياحة والتكنولوجيا والبنية التحتية المستدامة وتعزيز التصنيع المستدام من خلال تسهيل الموارد المحلية وتعزيز فاعليتها وجذب الاستثمارات النوعية المتوافقة مع الأهداف التنمية المستدامة. كما تؤكد المملكة على أهمية موائمة جهود مجموعة العشرين مع أهداف التنمية المستدامة للعام 2030 لضمان تحقيق نمو اقتصادي شامل ومتوازن يعزز رفاه الشعوب ويحافظ على الموارد للأجيال القادمة. وترى المملكة أن التحديات العالمية بما في ذلك أعباء الديون على بعض الدول وأمن الغذاء والطاقة والتغيير المناخي والتحول الرقمي تتطلب تنسيقا مستمر واتباع نهج متكامل يوازن بين التنمية الاقتصادية وحماية البيئة والاستقرار المالي. وفي هذا الإطار تشدد المملكة على ضرورة الحد من التدفقات المالية الغير مشروعة وتعزيز قدرة الدول على تسخير مواردها المحلية بكفاءة باعتبارها من العوامل الأساسية لتحقيق الاستقرار الاقتصادي وتمويل برامج التنمية المستدامة. كما تدعو إلى تعزيز التعاون الدولي لتبادل الخبرات وأفضل الممارسات في هذا المجال بما يسهم في بناء أنظمة مالية أكثر شفافية ومرونة. الحضور الكرام، لقد أثبتت السنوات الأخيرة أن التحديات التي تواجه عالمنا لا تعترف بالحدود وأن معالجتها تتطلب تضامنا دوليا صادقا وتعاونا متعدد الأطراف يقوم على المسؤولية المشتركة. فالعالم اليوم يواجه مستويات متزايدة من عدم المساواة واضطرابات اقتصادية عالمية تركت آثارها العميقة على حياة الملايين وأدت إلى التصاعد في حدة التوترات الإقليمية والدولية. هذه جميعها قضايا تهدد استقرار النظام الدولي برمته وتعرقل مسيرة التنمية المستدامة. وبالرغم من تلك التحديات وحالة عدم اليقين التي يشهدها الاقتصاد العالمي، فإن المملكة ماضية في العمل على بناء اقتصاد عالمي أكثر تكاملاً واستدامة من خلال شراكاتها الفاعلة على المستوى الدولي بما يضمن مستقبلاً مزدهراً وآمناً للأجيال القادمة. في الختام، تؤكد المملكة على أهمية دور مجموعة العشرين المشترك في قيادة الجهود الدولي لتعزيز التنسيق بين السياسات الاقتصادية العالمية والنمو وتمكين الاستثمارات المستدامة وتطوير سياسات صناعية واقتصادية تدعم الاستقرار والازدهار للجميع وتساهم في حماية الدول الأكثر هشاشة من تداعيات الأزمات المالية والاقتصادية. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Peace, mercy, and blessings of Allah be upon you.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. I now call upon in the segment of members of the G20, the last speaker before we go to guest countries. I now call us upon the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Presidential Executive Office of the Russian Federation, Mr. Maxim Oreshkin.
Thank you, President Ramaphosa. The international economic order is definitely in crisis, and it is no longer matching new and emerging realities. This crisis is three-dimensional: the crisis of globalization and openness, the crisis of global economic institutions, and the crisis of economic development models. These days, global economy is facing a severe fragmentation. Advanced economies continue to engage in illegitimate unilateral actions, including sanctions, trade barriers, technological and national restrictions, as well as seizure of sovereign assets. These methods of unfair competition destabilize the global supply chains, discourage long-term investments. Undermine progress in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Today, we are here in Africa, a region that urgently needs strong economic growth to meet the needs of its fast-growing population. We should talk today about access of Africa and the Global South, healthcare, education, and most importantly, financing. We're concerned that financial flows to developing countries are simply not enough. Even the official development assistance came to a steep decline in 2024 of 7.1% and is projected to fall further. While Africa is in dire need of capital inflow, total net borrowings by G7 governments, according to the IMF data, will reach almost $3 trillion this year. By the way, it equals to total GDP of the whole African continent. Mounting sovereign debt of several G7 countries pushes them to the verge of fiscal collapse. Artificially inflated financial bubbles may trigger a knockdown to the global economy. If we look at the international financial institutions, they are currently deviating from development finance to military expenditures. Thus, financing goes back to the Western economies, and in many cases through the corruption schemes in Ukraine. The World Bank, for example, has provided Ukraine with more aid in 3 years than to all African countries combined. Moreover, African economies face biased rejections and complicated procedures of funding from the World Bank and the IMF. Definitely, all these institutions should be reformed to benefit the Global South. Dear colleagues, global economy and its growth structure has already changed. BRICS and countries of the Global South now form the dominant driver of global growth. We have the talent, the resources, the technology, and the capacity to drive growth and improve the lives of our people. Unlike in previous decades, the Global South economies are ready this time to move forward with their own platform for economic growth, based on their own solutions. In technology and education, in trade and connectivity, in finance and investments. The rise of this emerging platform of growth becomes more evident with each passing year. The fact that growth in the 21st century will come mainly from the Global South is indisputable. We call the G20 to get back to the fundamentals of sustainable development. It means poverty reduction, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. This should be based on sound economic development, which includes fighting protectionist and illegitimate unilateral measures, including sanctions, tariffs, technological and educational restrictions. To fulfill this mandate, the G20 should stay a multilateral platform for coordinated action acting in solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Russia is ready to play an important role in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency. That concludes for us this segment of the members of the G20 speeches. We now move on to section B, which is guest countries, who will, as we have to conserve time, be limited to 3 minutes each. And I do hope that we are able to keep to that to the extent that we can. I now call upon His Excellency, Dr. Abiy Ahmed Ali, the Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia.
Your Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished delegates, let me begin by extending my appreciation to President Cyril Ramaphosa for his extraordinary leadership. I also would like to acknowledge Johannesburg, a city of opportunity and progress. Excellencies, it is with humility and hope that I address you on African soil at this historic G20 summit. Humility because Ethiopia's journey is still unfolding. Hope because our story, like that of many nations here, shows that transformation is possible even in difficult circumstances. Ethiopia is a land of ancient civilization, defined by resilience and prospects still being written. Our homeland has sheltered faiths. Our people have built lasting societies. From this legacy comes Maddamar, a philosophy of unity in diversity, of synergetic collaboration that multiplies potential and of progress shared by all. Guided by this spirit, Ethiopia is moving toward inclusive growth. Our cities are becoming hubs of innovation. Industrial parks reshape economies. Farmers use tools their parents could never imagine. Young entrepreneurs and building businesses that were impossible to dream of a generation ago. For too long, countries like ours have been labeled fragile or poor. Yet our story is a quiet revolution of bold actions rewriting what is possible. Because growth is the achievement of people who refuse to be left behind. In Ethiopia, we have learned that inclusivity is not charity, it is efficiency. When every farmer, entrepreneur, and innovator shares in progress, the economy becomes self-sustaining. Our journey has been tested by drought, conflict, and global shocks. Yet from those tests emerges transformative renewal. We are investing in renewable energy that powers both homes and hope, digital infrastructures that connect citizens, and green agriculture turning smallholder farmers into climate champions. Excellencies, we're not here to speak of despair. We're here to speak of possibility and of shared responsibility. In that spirit, let me highlight 3 priorities. First, debt. Ethiopia has engaged actively with the G20 Common Framework to unlock resources. Debt relief must translate into investments that empower people and secure the future, including educated children, modern hospitals, and resilient infrastructure. Second, climate. Through our Green Legacy Initiative, Ethiopians have planted over 48 billion seedlings, restoring soils, watersheds, and hope ecological restoration must become the new global investment landscapes, supported by debt for climate swaps and green value chains that reward nature and communities. Third, energy and digital transformation. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam symbolizes Africa's renewable ambition. We are expanding into solar, wind, geothermal, and nuclear power, and we envision an Africa energy network that drives industrialization while achieving net zero emissions. Through Digital Ethiopia, we have liberalized telecom, expanded broadband, and advanced digital finance. By 2030, we aim to complete our national digital public infrastructure, integrating IDs, payments, and data platforms to serve citizens. For Ethiopia, artificial intelligence is a tool for inclusion, helping predict droughts, diagnose diseases, and support local language, ensuring technology works for all. Excellencies, Ethiopia's journey mirrors that of many emerging economies. Our success offers lessons, our challenges offer insights. Inclusivity and sustainable growth is both a practical and a moral imperative for our continent. It requires humility to reconsider what we treasure and courage to redefine what we value. I propose that the G20 adopt a new lens, measures resilience as growth. Let us count not only GDP, but the capacity of societies to withstand and adapt, because that ultimately is what sustains development. Ethiopia stands ready, rooted in Madamar, to contribute to this shared global journey. I thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Ahmed Ali. I now have the privilege to call upon His Excellency, Mr. Teodoro Obiang Nguema Basogo, the President of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea and the President of the Economic Community of Central African States, to address us. Okay, there seems to be a problem there, which they will fix in a little while. I will come back to President Basogo. I now want to move on to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Finland, Alexander Stubb.
Thank you very much, Cyril, and thank you for the invitation. You know that Finns are famous for two things. One, they speak very shortly, and two, they love rules. And I hope I will stick to both. It's a great privilege to be here for the first time representing Finland. We've never been at a G20 meeting before, and we really appreciate the invitation. You that the Nordics would be G10, so perhaps I'll speak in that spirit. Cyril, for me, this meeting is very much a symbol of multilateralism. And what you are trying to do here is to bring a group of key countries together that have both demography and economy on their side. And you are doing it at a time when there clearly is a change in the world order, where I believe personally that the nexus of power is moving eastbound and southbound. And now I think all of us pretty much have a choice, and the choice is between multilateralism, which you are representing, and multipolarity. And these two things are very different. For me, multilateralism is about cooperation, it's about rules, it's about norms, and it's about institutions. I like these rules because they are the ones that bring exactly the thing that you have up there on the board: solidarity, equality, and sustainability. My big worry right now is that the world is moving more in a multipolar direction. And multipolarity, though it gives power to nation states as such, is problematic because it's more transactional. It's more about deals, and therefore it's more prone to conflict. There have been many excellent interventions here today about rules on trade, rules on the way in which we engage with each other. My biggest worry right now is that we are not seeing enough multilateralism in three key conflicts that have been raging around the world. One, Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. Two, the situation in Gaza. And three, the situation in Sudan. So I hope that we lean towards multilateralism. And let me say, coming from a small country, what I believe the West should do in this. I think the West should understand that the multilateral institutions that were created after World War II and that were upheld after the Cold War, the power structure of them is right now unfair. It needs to be changed. We need to distribute power in a world that exists today, not the world that existed in 1945. That is the best way for us to drive multilateralism and get it back on track. Thank you very much. 3 minutes and 12 seconds.
Thank you very much, President Stubb. You were just so precise, Alexandra. That's the Nordic spirit, I take it. We now go back to His Excellency President Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, President of the Equatorial Guinea. We apologize for your mic having not worked as it should have, but please go ahead.
Sus Excelencias, Jefe de Estado y de Gobierno y Jefe de Delegaciones, distinguidos invitados, señoras y señores. Me dirijo a ustedes en nombre de la Comunidad Económica de los Estados de África Central.
There is still a problem for President Mbasogo. My apologies again, President. The technicians told me that they had fixed it, but it seems like they still need to do a little bit more work. And with that in mind, I will move on, and we will give you double the time. I will move on to His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Ireland.
Has been very honoured and privileged to have been in a position to work with you across all work streams over the past 12 months. Our world is ever more interconnected and interdependent, and working collaboratively is the best way we can serve our people. Our long-standing commitment to international law, multilateralism, and active engagement in international fora motivates us to advocate for an inclusive international system that leaves no one behind. And in that context, there is an urgent need to end war and conflict. War and conflict damages and undermines economy and economic growth. And in that context, there must be renewed efforts to end the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the war that has ensued, and also the horrors of Gaza and the appalling situation in Sudan. We must work very hard to end these wars in addition to the many other conflicts. Ireland advocates for economic growth to be inclusive, to be resilient, and to be environmentally sustainable. And our focus has always been on investment in human capital in terms of education and training as the key underpinning of economic growth into the future. Economic growth has to control poverty reduction and must align with international commitments on climate change and environmental protection. Ireland welcomes the G20 efforts that support inclusive growth on the African continent and beyond, seeing this as an endorsement of the Agenda 2030 commitment to reach the furthest behind first. Women's economic empowerment is crucially important as a direct pathway towards gender equality, poverty eradication, and inclusive economic growth. Ireland values policy interventions that support investment in local and regional value chains, which support quality jobs creation, raise living standards, and enhance resilience. Digital inclusion is a key enabler of a growing economy, and we're supportive of work to develop a fair and inclusive digital economy with effective rules for digital trade. Trade and investment need to create opportunities for those considered the furthest behind, particularly women and marginalised groups. And Ireland, along with the European Union, is committed to an open and rules-based multilateral trading system with a modernised WTO at its core. The rules and the standards that the WTO provides are crucial for all of us who depend on global trade and allow all trading nations to benefit. The stability and the predictability provided by the rules-based multilateral trading system is key in supporting sustainable development. It does have to, however, be modernised and must also address the impact of the increasing use of trade-distorting industrial policies. Growing debt servicing costs, as has been said, translates into reduction in many countries' expenditure on the core areas of health and education and social protection to reach the furthest behind first. Ireland supports the outcome of the Financing for Development Conference, the Seville Commitment, and we are supporting include the G20, which has developed and is overseeing the implementation of the Common Framework for Debt Treatments, the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable, and the Paris Club. And we continue to call, where appropriate, for reform and improvements of these institutions and initiatives. These priorities have guided our active engagement in the G20 this year, and we support South Africa in this endeavour. Thank you very much indeed, President.
Thank you. Thank you, Taoiseach. I now would like to go back to His Excellency, President Ngwema, a roving mic so that he can make his input. The fixed microphone does not seem to be working as well as it should. Go ahead, Your Excellency.
Sus Excelencias, Jefe de Estado y de Gobierno y Jefe de Delegaciones, distinguidos invitados, señoras y señores. Me dirijo a ustedes en nombre de la Comunidad Económica de los Estados de África Central. Permítanme expresar mi agradecimiento a la República de Sudáfrica por su liderazgo y por el tema elegido para su presidencia del G20, a saber, solidaridad, igualdad y sostenibilidad. Esta cumbre de Johannesburgo tiene lugar en un momento en que la arquitectura de la economía mundial aumenta las desigualdades en lugar de reducirlas entre las naciones. Durante décadas, nuestros pueblos han soportado los costos de un sistema desproporcionalmente a unos pocos y castiga a los más vulnerables.
Penalizing the
Sin
most
embargo,
vulnerable ones.
Nuestra región de África Central
Our region in Central
también
Africa
ofrece soluciones
zone
globales.
are actually
A modo de
proposing
ejemplo,
global solutions.
la cuenca de Congo
example,
constituye la
the
segunda
Horn
mayor
of
masa
Congo
forestal
constitutes
tropical
one of the greatest
del planeta y uno
areas
de
of
los
the planet,
últimos grandes sumideros de
whereby
carbono.
we
El Golfo
call
de
them
Guinea
the
garantiza la
lungs
seguridad de rutas
that
marítimas
guarantees
vitales.
the roots of
Nuestros
already
suelos y minerales
marginalized
críticos
sections.
desempeñan un papel
They
clave
do have a wonderful
en la
and
transición
key
energética y nuestra
role
juventud
in the
representa un
energetic
motor
and
de
it is
innovación, siempre y
the
cuando
indication
logremos liberar
of a
todo
possible
su
solution
potencial.
if we are able to liberate
Nos reunimos hoy
all that we do need to do.
en el
We are
G20,
joined here today at the
un foro
G20
que
forum,
pretende
a
ser el
forum which
espacio
definitely
donde
pretends to
las
be
global,
ignoring the voices,
ni repitiendo las fórmulas
no repeating
que han
the
perpetuado las
formulas
desigualdades
which actually are
entre las
perpetuating
naciones.
the
Para que el crecimiento económico
for
sea
the
inclusivo
growth,
y
economic
sostenible
growth, which we are
y
actually
que no
hoping
deje
for,
nadie atrás
and that nobody should be left
en nuestra
behind
comunidad,
in our community.
quisiera ofrecer
I would like to propose
a esta cumbre
to this particular forum
unas soluciones
certain
que
solutions
pueden ayudar
that might be
para
helpful
los más
for
necesitados.
the most
Primero,
needful.
hacer que
First
la
of all,
arquitectura
To ensure that the
financiera mundial,
architecture of
sea
the
más
world
justo.
economy
Esto
be
significa facilitar el acceso
equal
al capital
and that
para
of the
desarrollo
economy
de riesgo
and
soberano.
identification of the risk
Segundo,
involved
transformar los
for all
minerales
parties
críticos
concerned.
en
Secondly,
prosperidad compartida
hand in
mediante la
hand
creación de valor en origen.
in a meaningful
Esto
way,
implica claramente
sharing all the
desarrollar cadenas de valor locales,
values
establecer
and sharing all
normas
the chains
que
facilitating
generen oportunidades,
access to these opportunities we are
dividendos
talking about,
comunitarios y que garanticen la
that will
integridad
guarantee
ambiental,
definitely
así como
the integrity
el
of these
vínculo
particulars.
entre lo
And the
humanitario,
link
el desarrollo y la paz.
between all
La
concerned,
transición energética
which will enable
no
us to
debe
attain the required
reproducir
peaceful
los antiguos modelos
areas,
extractivos. Tercero,
avoiding the old
garantizar la
extractive
seguridad alimentaria y
methodologies.
nutricional
Of
mediante
course,
inversiones
on the third point,
desde
we're
la
talking about
producción
the
hasta la distribución. La CAC necesita
CSC
socios
does need definitely
para apoyar la agricultura
to support
climáticamente inteligente,
and the
el
artificial
sistema de
intelligence,
riesgo
the
y la
risk
producción
system,
regional
and the
de
regional
fertilizantes
of
para reducir la dependencia
methodologies that will definitely allow
de
us
las
to reduce
importaciones
the
y la
risk
volatilidad de los
in
precios.
this
Invertir
and reduce the
en el
cost involved for the
almacenamiento
reduction of this particular beds we're
de
talking about.
cadenas de frío y servicios de asesoría
Recognizing
digital
and establishing
dirigidos a los
chains that
pequeños
enable us
productores, sobre todo las mujeres
and of
y
course the
los jóvenes,
women in the
por la
different
creación
sectors
de una
that
reserva
enable them
alimentaria general
have the
y de un
startups
sistema de
required
alerta
to
temprana.
boost the economy
Solicitamos
in the
el
regions
apoyo
concerned.
financiero
We
del
therefore solicit
G20
from you
para promover
the means
una
to
seguridad
be able to
alimentaria
promote
basada en la
the
cadena de valor para ser
the
autosuficientes.
security
Cuarto,
in food security we're
reconocer
talking about.
y recompensar los bienes
to
públicos
definitely
mundiales, en
recompense
particular
everyone
la cuenca del Congo,
who actually
cuyas selvas
affected in the
absorben
Congo-
miles de
Congo,
millones de toneladas de
basin of
carbono
Congo,
y protegen